Welcome back to Rikos Way, and if you're listening to my podcast, thank you for tuning in. I just returned from Japan from my annual RWB gathering and also visiting the Tokyo Auto Salon. After no sleep for a week, I feel recharged and focused. If you've been to Japan, you understand, you know what I'm talking about. For all you car lovers, if you haven't gone to Japan, I encourage you, please make the trip. You're gonna love it. So after SEMA, I was just really burned out after doing a year-long build. I didn't want to do anything car related. I just wanted to give myself time to absorb what happened and, let new ideas come to me. Let 2020 come to me. Let me understand what I had done and get an idea of what was coming. So I do apologize for not making any content. I was just really low key after SEMA, but now I'm back. I'm back from Japan. Lots of exciting stories to tell you guys. And one of the stories that everybody has wanted to hear is, how did we build the ae86? So this is the video you all been waiting for. Thank you so much for waiting. I appreciate all my subscribers, YouTube, Instagram, on the podcast. Let's get into the video. Thank you so much for tuning in. How to get ready for a long journey is to have a destination. So before I even started the physical project, I had already had a vision for the build and I knew I wanted to go to SEMA. So once I secured a spot, I had an end date of November. So then I already had an idea, I had a vision, and I had a date when everything had to be done. So already before anything started, I had an idea of what I was getting myself into. So first off, what's the build gonna cost? So how we do these things is I get the idea, I have the vision, and then I have a meeting with my fabricator, Marcus. We sit down, we talk about my ideas, what's possible, what's capable. We come up with a budget. When we first started the build ideas is that I wanted to do something similar to Driftworks in the UK, where they had the ae86 with the LS motor. Marcus did the numbers. When they came back to me, they just shocked me to death of how much it was going to be. This was going to be so much money within 1 year. I just really got freaked the F out. I really did. It really was a shocking moment for me of, how was I going to do this? I already got the spot. I just can't chew on that much. So I spent a week on it. I sat on it. And then I came up with an idea of, let's do a beam swap. Let's put in a Toyota Beams motor. This will definitely bring down the parts cost. We will not have to do a rear mount radiator as if we were doing an LS swap. Things will bring the cost down. So he gave the numbers back to me. Still, it was a lot, but it was less. And I have to be honest. It was extremely a stressful period right at the beginning of the build. It was really stressful. I felt uncomfortable. I felt uneasy. I felt guilty. All these things of that, spending all this money on this build. But I tried to remind myself, what? I've been on this road before. Every time I do a big build, this feeling of being uncomfortable is something I shouldn't run away from. I should meet it. I should meet the challenge. So I try to ignore the year-end total and just try to focus on how much money I had to come up with each month to keep the build going. So at the beginning, I had the drop-off and the drop-off amount. I just focused on that. And I knew in another 30 days or another 45 days, I would have to come up with another amount. And this is how the process started for me. How I build: fabricate, mock up, disassemble, paint, reassemble, fire it up. It sounds simple, right? Like Legos when we were kids. Put it together, take it apart, put it back together again. Since I build my cars to be completed and never drive them during the process, you're never gonna see me driving a primered car for a few years and then go back and then take it all apart and do things all over again. I go in one direction anything we miss, I can catch in reassembly. So since I'm doing a full build to completion, I don't spend too much time on small details that like a show car builder would do, or someone just doing an engine swap, or someone just doing an interior. You know, you're not gonna see these crazy details in my builds. The reason is that I'm building to 100. You know, I'm doing 100% of the project. You know, I'm producing a whole car. You know, money is being spent on the entire process. You know, I can't go crazy on my wheels and not have any money for my motor. You know, I can't go crazy in my interior and not have any money for my suspension. You know, people are gonna catch that. I catch it when I see cars. You know, I can see it when someone threw down on the paint, threw down on the motor, and then I see some eBay coilovers. Like, come on, man, what happened here? You know, it shows how you mismanage your budget. And I don't want people to look at my cars and see that. I want them to see a complete picture, a complete build. So with my cars, that's how you're gonna see them. This is so much better in Costco. Oh! Spill on aisle 4. How can you help the build? Anything I can buy saves time. You know, it's not a matter of pride of, hey, we can fabricate it, we can make it. Fabricating takes time. And when you're dealing with a fixed time frame like building for SEMA, you don't have the luxury of telling your fabricator, let's build this, it'll look super cool. That's my dog. You know, you gotta bite the bullet and buy stuff. You know, there's a lot of good products out there. So for suspension parts, I called Battle Garage Racing in Fremont, had them source me all the T3 parts, everything they could sell for the Corolla. You know, I had them source all the parts that SQ Engineering from Australia sells for the beam swap. You know, the slim mount rear end, the alternator, slimline kit. They sold me the 20 valve ITB adapter kit, the ITB horns, the 100 millimeters, all kinds of little bits and pieces. The shifter, the relocation shifter for the beam's transmission, super dope piece. All those little bits and pieces, to be honest, takes a lot of time. You know, even though I call Battle Garage, or even though I call T3, or even if I call Excessive Engineering for the link ECU and the harness, I have to almost know more about their product than they do. You are gonna lose money and time just calling up any shop, any online retailer and saying, hey, I'm doing this 86 build for SEMA. Can you just send me everything you think I could use or everything you think I could need? I guarantee you they're gonna send you the wrong parts. You know, stuff is gonna go back and forth. You're gonna waste money on returns and you're gonna waste time. You have to do your own research. You gotta be on the forums. I mean, international forums, on Facebook, on the gram, looking at other people's build pictures, digging for information. So when it comes time to make that order, you know exactly what you want. And that will save you time and money. And it is something that is demanded of you as a builder. So, you know, I use Battle Garage for all the parts. Hit up Annex Suspension for my true rear setup for coilovers, front and rear. You know, I ordered my 20 valve ITBs from Malaysia. I hit up Excessive Engineering for my link ECU and engine harness. You know, anything I could buy. The rear end, I got online. I found out a guy named Robert Navarro does shortened forward rear ends. He works for Secret Car Factory USA in Sacramento. I hit him up on the phone. I tracked him down. He says, yes, I can shorten a Ford 8.8 for you, and I can even weld on the T3 brackets for you and have it done for you. You just got to pick it up. Stuff like that I found just by scrubbing Facebook articles. Anything you can do, it's on you, and it's a huge part of the build of you digging for information and make. So late 2018, around November, the first items was chased down. I chased down 11 fronts. So in other words, I started working on the exterior. I found the body kit that I wanted to use. It was made by Custom Garage Speed in Japan. So I sourced the body kit. I knew I had to get JDM front bumpers, front and rear. So I had the 11 front, JDM front bumpers, front and rear. I had the wide body kit from Custom Garage Speed. So right from the get-go, I had the exterior done. So in January, just like right now, I had just got back from Japan. And while I was in Japan, I was at the Tokyo Auto Salon. I had a meeting with JC from Works Japan, and we went over the wheel that I was going to use for the SEMA build. And they just had released a new face, a new smoky black Equip 40. I loved it. I saw it. We got to put this on the car. We made the deal, flew back home. So on my return, Marcus had an opening in his shop. So I called him up, came over to my house. He brought the truck and trailer, took the tarp off the car after 12 years. We put air in the tires, pushed the car in the trailer. After some observation on the car, the car was aesthetically ugly, but there was very little rust. There actually was only a little bit of rust on the rear hatch. So first thing on the item was to get the car to the shop and get it stripped. New build, new strategy. For this build, I wanted the car to be media blasted. I wanted to do just like the hot rodders, just like the lowriders did it. I'm not creating anything new. I'm just trying to become a better builder with each build. So once the car got to Marcus's shop, we stripped out all the interior, took out every bit and cranny, everything, especially every rubber molding, anything, all the glass, all the lights, all the harness, all the seats, out. Everything came out of the car. And why did I want the car to be media blasted? Well, I was taking a note or a page from hot rod builders, from lowrider builders. I had seen that they always media blast the cars, and it's something that I wanted to do. Why do it? Well, it's to save time and money for the fabricator when they go to welding and fabricating on the car. 2 is also to save time and money when the car goes to paint, when they're prepping the car for paint. So we took the car to Myers in Oakland, trailered it over there, took the car, and when we got it back, man, it was like a brand new chassis. It was so cool. And when the car is blasted, it comes back gray. So the raw color of metal is gray when you get it back. It's so pretty and clean. It gives you a motivating feeling that, hey, you know what? We're starting off from a fresh body. And it's a really great feeling, and it's something that I'm going to keep doing on my builds. The fabrication period. I love this part. I love seeing Marcus work. So when the car came back, we had the cage welded in, and for this build, I let Marcus have his freedom. He decided to put a lot of triangles in the cage, one for strength, but also to be on when it's going to be on the SEMA floor visually. It's going to be really cool. And with all my cages, we also put the secondary A-pillar. It's something really cool. So when I'm driving on the racetrack or on the street, if you really can see that I have a roll cage, so it gives that intimidation look. I love it. We then mocked up the rear Ford 8.8 with all the T3 arms and the panhard, and also mounted the big brake kit from T3. Also, we went with the equal length 4-link kit with the boxes from T3. These have to be fabbed in, cut out the rear body and fab in the boxes that will mount the leaks. This allows for more travel for the suspension and better handling for when the car is lowered. For the front, all the parts are replaced, with all new suspension parts from T3 using the ae86 suspension coilovers. The only thing on the stock on the front of the car is the front stock subframe. We went with 1-inch body spacers so that the beams motor would clear the hood. Whenever you're doing the beam swap, if you don't plan to run the engine cover, you probably don't have to put the body spacers so that the hood will close. But since I wanted to run the valve cover, we had to add the spacers. Then the engine was set in place and we could see what additional mounts were required. Along with the transmission mounts, we could see since we cut the floor, we couldn't use the stock mount locations, so custom mounts had to be made. Firewall, we didn't modify the firewall. With the way we set up the motor, it just had this much space, but just enough that we did not have to hammer or tunnel out the stock firewall or even the transmission tunnel. Everything is stock. After we did that, we set in the radium fuel cell. It's a beautiful piece. Damn, it looks really good, and I'm sure it's going to do a great service for me. One of the most time-consuming jobs was shaving the engine bay. I mean, don't talk to Marcus about it. He hated doing it. But what he did came out excellent. But why is it so time-consuming is that every little hole, you know, all the holes for the windshield wipers, for the brakes, for the battery, for the engine harness, all that had to be plugged by hand. You know, he covered each hole, welded them in, he sanded them down. It was a very time-consuming process, but I knew it was something that had to be done. I knew the end product was going to be worth it, and I kept repeating this again and again to him, and he just nodded and grinded away. So the other thing that we did is that we adjusted the driver seating position. 6 feet tall, 2 inches. So when I'm in the car with the roll cage in a small compact car, I didn't want to be driving like this when I'm wearing my helmet. So to do that, we cut the floor. Once again, that's another thing that I learned from doing research online, just digging for pictures and digging for ideas. So I found that if we cut the floor flat, that would get us down. And also, since I have long legs, we moved the seat position back, and he made custom seat mounts. So that's how we got the seating position for the 86. And the result is that when I'm in this car, I actually have more room in it than any of my other cars. So the body kit finally arrives like in July, in the middle of the summer. That's where we're at now. So once the body kit came in, you know, we mounted it up with blue tape, and then finally we could see what the car was going to look like. And it was so dope. It was so wide. It was so wide. Even Marcus himself was like, I could do this. I dig it. I dig it. And so once we had the fenders, he could finally cut the rear fenders. He could install the tubs on the rear. We could finally cut the front fenders. We could finally mock up the bumpers, see how the car was going to look, see what any metal that needed to be removed for the kit, and also for tire clearance. The other thing that we could finally do, which I really needed to do, is I needed to measure how wide and also the offset for the custom made work wheels that I needed to order. You know, JC from Japan was constantly calling me. He says, hey man, I need those specs. You know, we only made 25 sets of these wheels. I need you to put in the order in. So in July, I finally sent in the numbers. Set 26. So since I sent the numbers so late in the year to Japan, they had sold already all 25 sets of the Smoky Blacks. So I got the bad news from JC telling me that I wasn't going to be able to run the unique color for the SEMA build. So yeah, I was bummed, but in the build process, you have ups and downs. So I couldn't really complain back to him. Well, a week later, he called me up. Turns out that JC went the extra mile for me. He called the factory, and he found they had an extra quart of the Smoky Black paint. See, the Equip 40 wasn't the rare part. You know, they always make Equip 40 faces. What was rare was the Smoky Black faces. They only made 25 sets. Well, he found enough paint to paint one more set. So my set is set 26. There's only 2 sets in the United States. Mine is the last of the work Smoky Black sauce. I mean, these stories, these unique stories, they happen now and again through the build, and they make the whole experience unique. You know, these are first-hand stories that you're going to experience doing these large builds. Time for paint. So the car was sent to 24/7 Auto Body in Redwood City. I've worked with these guys for over 5 years painting my cars. You know, Juan and Jose Ayala are great guys. They understand my visions. Great execution, quality and care. So for this car, they knew it was going to go to SEMA, and they knew I wanted to paint it a special gold color for this event. I wanted the car to stand out amongst the other SEMA builders. You know, I wanted the paint also to be a weapon in the competition at SEMA. So late one night, Jose Ayala, he also sells paint and also makes custom blends, and he has also made all the custom color codes for all my builds. So he knew how important this build was. So this is the story that he told me, and I'll tell you the same. So late one night, he was having a dream, and he dreamt about the Centenario, which is a gold 50 peso coin back from the late 1940s in Mexico. Well, what's so special about this coin, and of course it's gold, but when you hold it into the light, it shines and sparkles like a diamond. He was inspired by this. He woke up, he developed the formula, and he built the color code. He called me, he told me he had found what I wanted, and he made a couple sample palettes for me. I met with him in person. We spent a whole evening having this meeting, talking about paint, having a few beers, and just enjoying the creative process, enjoying the build. The build is stressful. It's already stressful. It's already expensive. So when you have these moments, when you can be creative, enjoy your time with your suppliers, with your fabricator, man, savor it. And that evening we talked about paint. We talked about everything that goes into it. And I was sold on this Centenario color. And that is the color that we shot the car with. So before we got to the paint stage, the car was sanded down by hand. The entire car, interior, exterior, everything that was fabricated was sanded down by hand. It was then sealed with a protective coat, and the body was smoothed out. Engine bay was completely sealed in to finally get that true shaved look. The body kit was fitted on. Any imperfections were fixed. The rust area on the rear hatch was completely repaired with metal. After all the work was done, all this time, of course, the car is sitting on a dolly, no parts, everything ready for the rotisserie primer process, and then finally for the paint process. When the car was done, it is something else to see the car in the paint booth. And I encourage people to paint their cars. That feeling of joy when you see the car just freshly painted, just freshly baked in the paint booth, it is your creation that has come to life. It's right in front of you. It's something, you just got to experience it. So this one thing that was very special about this paint, beside it being Centenario, was that if you're just standing back, within the shop looking at it, I can see it has gold. I can see it has gold pearl in it and some gold flake. But when you bring the car into the sunlight, or if you present the car with a bright LED light, the diamond flake pops out. And it surprises you. So when it was on SEMA on the showroom floor, at night when they had the lights on in the Toyo Tread Pass, you could really see the diamond flake. It would really come out. So it would surprise you just like a weapon, just like how it always intended. Now, a side note I want to tell you, when you're getting the car painted, it's just like when you're getting the car fabricated. I would visit the car every 2 or 3 days, constantly keeping up on what's going on, calling Juan, asking him if there's any parts that are needed. The hood, everybody asking about where is this famous hood. Well, the only reason I actually have a carbon hood for the car, and the only reason I actually had to buy a hood, is so that we could fit the fenders and bumpers, and then the hood was then removed. Hey, he called me, I need it, you have to buy it. He didn't like the quality of the rear lights, of this, certain aesthetics. I bought new ones. Sometimes your painter can give you ideas that you don't see. So welcome opinions from your suppliers, and then execute, make your decision and move forward. Back from paint, 2 weeks till SEMA. Well, before the car came back from the body shop, me and Marcus had a sit down. We discussed that there was too much riding on the build for us not to make the deadline. You know, we had Toyo tires, we had Illis, and everyone else waiting to see what we were going to bring to SEMA. So we worked out a budget so that the shop will be dedicated only to working on my car till it left for SEMA. So once we got all the money settled, he brought on more staff and we moved forward. So once the car came back from the body shop, we were ready to go. The road to starting the car. To help out, I would go buy food, get tires mounted, go buy polycarbonate, engine parts, store runs, go junkyard runs, anything to keep them on the car. As much as we had to do. And the way we started the build was that Marcus Fry and his team set up a job list board in the shop, and they had a full list of what we had to do within the 2 weeks. And by day or even by the hour, they would check off items that had been completed. So one of the first things that we had ordered was we called up South Bay Driveline and ordered a custom drive shaft. Marcus ordered it. He had it he had it painted in gold with gold flake. That was a huge surprise, and it was super cool. We had to give life to the car. The motor got the Link ECU with the custom harness. Also, we in-house built a custom chassis harness for the whole car. For the cooling, we ordered a radiator. Marcus fabricated custom ins and outs for the radiator. He also mounted it underneath the front support, along with the fan was mounted in front of it. Along in the engine bay, there's no wiring, so all the wiring had to be ran around under the fenders for the lights and for the cooling. Same with the engine. If you look at my engine bay pictures, sometimes you can't see the wiring, but how we did is that we routed it through the rear of the block, and that's how we feed power to the motor. After that, brakes. So we used a Tilton pedal setup with the reservoir, and once again, custom fab. It's just endless amounts of custom fabrication. If you look at the engine bay, you don't see any brake lines. Marcus made all the lines and routed it to the front and rear of the car. Under this car is so clean that you could fuck yeah, lick off it. The exterior lights, I used what came with 11 swap. The front bumper lights I got from the UK. The rear sprinter lights I got from Australia. But still I needed bulbs and pigtails for the lights. So I spent a few days at the junkyard and at the local supply house getting all the parts necessary so that they could solder them into the new custom chassis harness. Disco lightning, disco balls. Disco lightning, disco balls. Woo, we coming to SEMA. The shifter was something that we made one night with just me picking up spare parts on the ground, putting it together and saying, yeah, this looks like a shifter. Hey, Marcus, can you weld this together? And I would distract him from what he was doing and we would make it. So the shifter you see, that's how we made it. For the display, we went with the AIM Strata Link Edition, and Marcus Fry made all the custom supports for it, as long as the steering shaft for the steering wheel. That was all made by Marcus Fry. That was all made just for my height, with me sitting in the seat, holding the steering wheel with nothing there, and Marcus taking measurements and custom making everything for me. There's very little in the engine compartment that was purchased. 90% of everything in that car was fabricated at Marcus Fry Racing. So we have the display, we have the chassis harness, we have the engine harness, we have the ECU. How we turn on the car. So we made a custom-made box that would house all the switches, and some switches came from Excessive with their switch kit, and then we added some more. But that whole thing was made by Marcus Fry, and they labeled it for me. Looks really cool. I have my main on-off switch, and I have a push button to fire up the car. For the exterior car, I went with polycarbonate windows. You know, it's something that I had seen used on race cars, and it was a decision that I had made at the beginning of the build that I wasn't going to waste time, you know, chasing down stock original window trim, you know, spending money restoring original window trim and all that stuff. So once we had the car painted, we custom made the polycarbonate windows. You know, we paint the edges black, and Marcus Fry riveted them on the car. I mean, once they were on the car, it really gives it that complete racer look. It's so cool. For seats, I was supposed to get a custom-made bride seats from Japan, but they just didn't make it in time. So I only had about 5 days before SEMA, so what to do? Well, I had some brand new bride seats in my 240, so I went home, ripped out the bride seats, and we put them in the ae86. So, you know, with these SEMA builds, or any build, you have to be willing to adjust. And the quick thinking, we got seats in the car, and we were ready to go. So I would say probably on Thursday before SEMA is when we needed to start the car. So I made a phone call to Grant from Battle Garage, and I knew he had tuned a Beams motor before. So I called to ask him if he could help me out. He was willing to come. He came and brought the laptop. He got the car to fire up. He even returned a second day to get the car running smooth. All I wanted is that I needed the car to start. I needed it to drive. I wanted to be able to drive into the SEMA floor, and I also wanted to participate in the parade. I didn't need a track tune. I just needed this car to get to SEMA and perform. And he really helped me out, and I'm really thankful for him helping me out on the build personally. Image is everything. You know, as the builder, you have to look at the entire picture, you know, the fab, the paint, all the nuts and bolts, but you got to think about the marketing and the social aspect. So one, the car had to get detailed for SEMA. So I sent the car to the body shop on Saturday, I think around noon, to get it cut and buffed. Because after it was painted, they brought the car to us. They knew we were going to touch it and be fabricating, that a car was never polished. So the car had to be polished. Number two, Illis was releasing a brand new custom steering wheel made by Illis and the Hundreds, and they were going to release it with my car at SEMA. So I had the first steering wheel, and Mark from Illis needed photographs. He needed media so he could sell the steering wheel, and also he could help me advertise the build at the SEMA show floor. So what I did is I contracted a local photographer, Abraham Silva. You know, I scheduled him to come to the body shop around 6 o'clock. You know, I talked to Juan at the body shop. You know, after you're done painting, could you let us use the paint booth area so we could shoot the car? We shot the car for about 2 hours, and those are all the images that you saw come out when the car first went to SEMA. Those are the images that Illis was using. Those are the images that the Hundreds were using, and also me myself. So after that, I brought the car back to the shop. But, you know, even though there's not time, there's still time. And you got to think of everything. And that's your job as the builder. So these are the last hours. You know, last pizza, last order of Red Bull. This is it. Let's do this. So once the car came back, we mounted the driver and passenger side polycarbonate windows. You know, Marcus cut in the custom sliders. We mounted my craft square mirrors. It's something special I wanted to put on the car. It was the only thing I had left of my old S2000 build. I even found the original craft square stickers. Talking about stickers, You know, we mounted the Toyo Tires banner on the windshield. The car is official. I had custom cut all the sponsors of the build, put them on the rear quarter panels. All that was done. Another thing I had found a few days before was, while I was cleaning up the shop, I almost threw them away, was that JC had made me these custom gold stickers from Work Wheels Japan. So I mounted those on the wheels. You know, we zip tied any loose wires on the car, you know, checking all the lights, making sure the car starts, good charge, everything. So at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning before SEMA, we finished the car. We fired up the car, we put it in the trailer. I wired Marcus his last payment. I mean, like I said, I am the builder, I am the owner. You gotta take care of everything. Think of everything. You know, people have been working for you. You gotta pay them. So we put the car in the trailer, and after a good morning's rest, Marcus drove off to SEMA, and that's where the story ends. Especially for this episode. So this has been Rikos' way of how to build a SEMA 86. I'm gonna make more videos on what it was like to be at SEMA, why you should go, what was the benefit I felt from it, and I'm gonna share with you guys all those stories. So till next time, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, peace.